You guys remember all those fireplaces I found in my house? Well, today we're gonna put beams on them. So a year ago, I tore down a barn up in the mountains and I grabbed a bunch of the beams out of it. I didn't have room in the shop, so I threw them in this parking lot. We're gonna take them inside. I'm gonna show you how we're gonna do this thing. All right, people. This is a beam I got out of a barn about 2 years ago. If you were following me on Instagram, you probably remember it, and if you weren't, shame on you again. God, that's becoming more consistent. Just follow me on Instagram. But we're gonna turn this into a mantle for my house, as you know, because I probably said that in a clip that I shot after this, but it put it before this in the video. In order to do so, I get a ton of questions on cleaning these up, finishing, mounting, all that kind of good stuff. So I'm gonna walk you through that process. So to start out, a few things you're gonna need. A beam saw. And if you don't have one of those, you can use this Protzi beam cutter. This is an attachment that goes onto any regular circular saw that I'll have linked down in the description. Used this thing for years before I got this big mamba jamba. And if you don't have either one of those, you can go pure savage like I used to and crosscut it on your bandsaw. Now, someone come turn this thing on. Come on, come on. The next two tools that I highly recommend if you want to kind of restore a beam and keep it looking old is either this, which is my beloved brush sander, or if you don't want to drop $600 on a specialty tool like that, you can use an angle grinder. With this is a coarse braided wheel or a soft wire wheel. Both of these work great. It helps you keep, this is how you keep the saw marks in old wood and don't just like sand them all out, keep all that character. So before you cut anything, sand anything, do anything, you want to put on a respirator, and I don't have one here. But you want to remove all the nails if you can. We're just going to cut this mother sucker across where the nails are so I can avoid taking them out. Like these ones, we got to pull out. Another very important part of working with reclaimed anything is safety glasses. And if you want an awesome pair like these, I've got them linked down below because they're awesome. See, my eyes are perfect. Yeah. You gotta make sure you make sound effects when you do literally everything. It makes it much funner. And if you don't have a square corner, I probably would advise not trying to keep a rough face. This is gonna be really hard to mount. Because I am #blessed, I'm gonna cut this with my beam saw. So technically 64 if I wanna cut that back off right now, which we could do running against the fence. And I could get this to be almost the full width. Or I could chop it down, make it smaller, and leave a little 3.5 inch reveal on each side. Which would you do? I'm gonna do the latter. Yeah. Because I'm pretty fortunate and I have a huge bandsaw, I happen to be huge, and I'm capable of wielding this myself. I'm going to rip it down to width on the bandsaw, but if you can't do that, I would just use a circular saw, cut it on both sides, and then cut it by hand with a handsaw, old-timey fashion. I think I hit a nail. Well, that sure as hell didn't work. Probably need a bigger blade, and I don't feel like putting my resaw blade on, so we're gonna freehand it again with the beam saw. I always forget that we have like no power at this table. Damn it! Uno momento. Much better. I smell so much better than the saw. Why? Japanese pool saw. Attempt number 4. Should I flip it over? Probably, huh? Oh boy. So, while Sam was putzing around, I got a hammer down there and I ended up breaking it. So we're just gonna do that. Yeah! Ah, that could be what nothing liked about the saw blades. So those are called nails. The actual way you should probably be doing all of this is with an electric chainsaw. Most of the pros use these. I was trying to use a gambit of absurd tools that most of you probably don't have. But if you want to be working with beams, get yourself an electric chainsaw. So we've got some nail heads we cut off here. I don't want to run over those with my plane. I'm actually going to run this thing through the joiner. So instead of trying to get them out, I'm just going to beat them down more into the wood. Some people might not like this, but it's an easy solution. We don't actually need the whole thing to be perfectly flat. We just want it to be close to flat to reference the wall. And that's basically going to be it for this beam. Now, a little sand, show you how to do that part, and we'll get some finish on it. So once again, I don't have a respirator. I should probably just go get my respirator. It's only 25 minutes away at my house. But we're gonna clean this thing up. This is a brush sander, as I stated at the top of the show. There's cheaper models than this. I'm gonna put a card right here or here, whatever side of the screen it's on. For the review I did on these a couple years ago, Porter Cable makes a more affordable one, or you can make a huge mess with the angle grinder. So the next step is going to be dress up like you're gonna rob a bank in the 1800s, and then go to town. I gotta be honest with you guys. I've had this thing for 5 years, and I found out like a year ago that it had this dust collection and never used it, and I am so impressed and so sad for my lungs for all of those years. So after a little brushy brush, I then move on to your regular hand sander. You want to be really light with it so you don't take the marks out. So that's basically it for sanding. I'll sand the edges a little more. This thing looks super gritty, but it's like nice and smooth. Touch it, Sam. That's smooth, huh? But it's like impressively smooth. You wouldn't think it'd be that smooth. All right, no touch. In my opinion, anytime you're putting finish on something that's got saw marks or defects and whatnot in it, brushing it, you typically are gonna be wiping around a lot of the finish, and it just doesn't look as good as spraying it. So I would suggest either getting a rattle can, or I've got my HVLP here. 2 finishes I recommend. This is a 2-part catalyzed lacquer, or General Finishes Endurovar. I'll have that link down below. All right, so we got a second mantle that I want to turn into a little bit more of a modern and smooth look. So we're gonna go through the first steps that we did on the other one first, which is gonna be remove the nails, cut it down to size. You once again wanna make sure you remove all nails, or if you have nail heads, they're embedded way below the surface. And then joint it on 2 sides. Then you wanna ram your huge beam through your planer. You want to give her a sanding, break these edges. then we'll go on to a little finish. Whoop-ah! Let us spray. All right, so to mount the mantle, I use sleeves and lag bolts. It's quite unique. You want to make sure that your sleeves are mounted in the center of bricks. So if you're going to be having a 15-inch to the bottom here, I've got a 7-inch mantle. That brings me up to here. It means we want to be in the center of these bricks here. So we're going to be about 3.5 inches up from our mark of 15. That'll actually put our reference hole in the center of the other beam, give or take. Now, I want to find the center of my fireplace. Fortunately for us, it's at the beautiful length of 58 3/4 of an inch. And half of that's what? Tell me in the comments, right now. Tell me in the comments.
It's 29.
Thank you, commenter. I'm gonna make a line with a marker so I can see it across here. Because Sam is a math wizard, he found center at 29 3/8. I like to work off center. These beams are, my beam I think is about 56 inches long. So using 3 lags, I should be able to get 54 3/4. Using 3 lags from center, I should be able to get less than 24 inches between them, which should be plenty of support. So just want to make sure when you're making your reference points that you are in full bricks. One thing we might run into here is that because there's nothing behind this one, I might actually explode this brick out. I want to be in the center of this brick here, so we're going to come 15 inches out on this side. 15 inches on this side. Good. This is what you call a hammer drill. This is actually a rotary hammer drill. It's an SDS. Very nice tool to have. If you don't have one of these, I highly suggest investing in one. I didn't have one until about 7 months ago when I reviewed this for the Home Depot. But now that I do have it, I love using it. I used your standard hammer drill for years. You can tell it's a hammer drill by the hammer. What the hammer does is it while you're drilling, and that's how you use it in masonry. You must have a hammer drill for masonry. You must also have a masonry bit. Before you drill, protect your face. These are masonry sleeves. I'll have them linked down below. What happens here is you can see, screw goes in, lag goes in, expands in the back, keeps it from pulling out. You can epoxy these in, they make tons of them if you're not comfortable with this, or if your brick's really shitty, you wanna go ahead with the epoxied one. You wanna make sure that the expansion is in the back, that way it can't pull out. Get this started, shove it in there slightly. Our beam's slightly under 7 inches. So I want to go about 3.5 inches to the bolt head. So these are how we're gonna mush our beam onto the wall. Now here's what I do that a lot of people probably don't, and I don't really care what you say, is I cut the head off. If you don't have a porta-band, you can use a hacksaw. I would suggest not using an angle grinder because it throws sparks, but you could do that too if you like to live life on the edge. What I like to do is take my beam, a Sasquatch, set it roughly on the wall where it's going to be. I then know that I have 54 3/4 inch beam and 58 3/4 inch wall, which means I'm going to have 2 inches of space on each side. The reason I like to do it this way is instead of trying to measure and find my reference holes, I just mark them on the bottom. I make a little tick mark on each side of the bolt, and I can then take my beam down. I can use a square to find center. Boom, there's my next mark. Boom, there's my next mark. This is a 1/2 inch bit. It actually happens to be a pocket hole bit. I would suggest using a brad point bit. You just want to drill the hole as plumb and square as you possibly can. Make sure you're removing the material from it too. This is where, unless you're a Sasquatch, you phone a friend. And I am a Sasquatch, but I'm still gonna phone a friend because he's right here. I'm gonna find the hole. pass block it into the wall. If you don't feel comfortable with how this is, if you have children or monkeys that perhaps would like to rip this off the wall, what some people do is they take a pocket hole bit like this. They'll drill down into the wood at whatever point they'd like, and then they'll run a Tapcon pocket hole screw into the brick. That sets everything back in there, and that's a good technique, and then you can just cover it with whatever you're putting on there, succulent or a candle. But besides that, this thing's pretty much done. Thank you guys so much for checking this one out. These beams add a ton of beauty and aesthetic to any room. Super easy to install, and I hope you guys got something out of this video watching me do so. Big thank you goes out to Woodcraft for sponsoring this build. If you guys are interested in any of the tools I used to break these beams down and get them on the walls, they're all available at Woodcraft, and I got a link down below. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. That way you can watch me do this all the damn time, because that's what we do here.
We do more than just put beams in.
Yeah, we actually do put more than just beams in. Like we made that, and I made this, and then we made this, and we made that. Lastly, stop hesitating and go put a damn beam on the wall, because it's way easier than you thought. And then when you're done, you get to punch it. Oh.